How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to New Game Plus. I'm Bryce Newberger, and today I wanted to check out a new miniature war game, something that literally just got my attention, and I thought it'd be interesting to take a look at it with you guys together. So I found, let me take a look at this. I found this channel here, Hobby Homies, and it was Why I Love Blackout. Now, I've never heard of Blackout. I have no idea what this game is, but I see this dude. His setups are much cooler than mine. His Necron armies in the background, all that fun stuff. And I love hearing about other people's war games. As someone who's making my own war game, Wonders of Dwethia, I want to read everyone's rules, and I'm the youngest of three brothers, and so I'm the eternal younger brother. I love being a little brother. I love stealing from older brothers. That's what little brothers do. And every time I watch a war game expert talk about generating rules, they're like, steal everything. And so that's what I do. I'm a little thief, right? So I go around, I read everyone's stuff, and I steal and I innovate. Now, I think Dwethia, my own game, is completely innovative. I've taken so many pieces from other things and learned so many lessons, like a little brother from an older brother, and then expressed it in my own way. But my rule set's still working, and I'm still fleshing it out, which is why I listened to this guy talk for like 4 minutes and 18 seconds, tight, quick video, and he just talked about why he loved this game. He said basically the rules are light and simple, and that it's only about 8 models, and that there's no point system in this. You basically pick a faction and you pick 3 units, and that's your army. So I thought that was interesting. You know, games for everyone is a game for no one. That's something I heard recently. And that's tough because, again, in my own game, I really want to make a game that as many people will enjoy. He also said that the rules were free on Blackout, so that just was like, great, let me go read them. And my rules will also be free. My game is completely free. So I thought maybe let's compare Dwethia with Blackout, and let's see, right, what I can, as a little brother, learn from someone who's an older brother. Now, one interesting thing is I went to this website and it says access the free rules. I'm like, cool, yeah, let's do that. Now I'm used to my website and I've got all my rules right on the homepage, you know, tons of links to them. You can get started, which will take you to all the rules you need to play, and there's different, you can choose, skirmish, role play, cosmic. So these are the different, and these are explanations. I've got different rule systems because Dwethia can be played as an RPG adventure like D&D, or it can be played cosmic combat like X-Wing or Battlefleet Gothic. Planetary Conquest is my own system. It's kind of like playing a real-time strategy game, but on the tabletop, which I don't think anyone's really done before. Not that I've seen. So it's a lot like Age of Empires, StarCraft, but with miniatures. Skirmish is more like Warhammer. Dwethia Dungeons is more like the game Ghost Ship. It's a solo roguelike dungeon crawl. And then Heroes is a lot more like Trench Crusade or Kill Team. It's a little bit more like limited. But yeah, my rules, you go, okay, well, which one of those sounds interesting? Everyone likes Warhammer. Let's do the Warhammer rules. And boom, the rules are all right here. So I go to Blackout. Let's see it. And it's like, first, I want your email. I'm like, okay, well, hold on. So let me real quick get access to the rules. So 1 second, let me pause and get the rules. Okay, that wasn't that difficult. They wanted my email address, and I gave it to them, and they let me in. I thought I'd have to get an email from them and click verify, and then go to some sort of GitHub link and get the rules or something like that. But nope, it's just you put in your email address and you're in. Oh yeah, this is my cheat of how I just open up Notepad and that shows my face. It's my own ghetto light. Anyways, all right, so let's take a look at this. Lore primer. I love lore. And in fact, let's take a look at this real quick. Let's take a look at their lore. Very cool images. I love it. I love it. I have plans eventually to get an artist for Dwethia. Right now, I'm making the art myself. These are my codexes, and I'm using Hero Forge to make the models. GIMP, which is a free version of Photoshop, a text generator that I found online, and then some images that are royalty free. These are actually historic photos. So that is Tokyo, actually, behind the Citadel. That is the Roman Colosseum behind the Empire of Seoul. So I just took, and this is actually a historic image from World War II, but then I've added some Photoshop elements to kind of touch them up. So I love their art, and I look forward to someday having an artist who can do all this kind of cool stuff. So, all right. So it's a futuristic game. Very cool. I love that the lore's there, and it's pretty tight. Blackout begins. Okay. My computer is... Oh, these images are pretty heavy for processing. That's interesting, too, in PDF. I mean, I love lore PDFs. It's 22 pages, beautiful art. This is definitely some lore I'm going to be reading. Again, with Duethia, my own game, right here at the beginning, learn the lore, right? So you can go, you click learn the lore, and it tells you my own, like, how the origin of the universe began, the rise and fall of the early precursor races, where humanity came from, and what happened with humanity. And so... Again, their art is fantastic and beautiful. I'm going to replace all of this art, which is AI generated, with an actual artist. My dream is to one day have some more like Warhammer style, and I want to go back to like the old school pencil art, right? Some of that black and white look. I have this 4th edition Dark Angels Codex here as like my constant reminder of my art direction of where I eventually want to go. But I love it. So, yeah, their lore. Okay. Very cool. Very accessible. Now let's get into the rule book. Okay. Let's see what kind of game we're dealing with here. It's a digital rule book. Okay. PDF. And we've got 23 pages. All right. Pretty good. It seems a little heavy, but it's only... Introduction, before you play, movement, combat, game setup, game rounds, activating unit, reactions, additional rules and scenarios. Okay, that's pretty good. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 real pages on rules, which isn't that bad. Duethia, for my rule system, and that's my thing, is I really want my rule systems to be pretty light. I've got an introduction to the game, what characteristics are, just a brief explanation of them, how to start a game, an overview of the game term, and then every breakdown of that game turn. So priority, move, shoot, fight, and then a few extra stats, destiny, faith and affinity, and then scars and glory is more for campaign play. So I'm looking at, for my own game, I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pages as well. 7, 8, 9 pages. So they've got me beat. Their rules are definitely tighter. So I've got some, perhaps some things I could learn here. Let's look more at the rules. Okay, before you play, introduction. Okay, let me make this bigger for you guys. Whoop. Whoop. Look at that. Text is now readable, legible. Okay, Blackout immerses players in a high lethality tactical environment where every decision can be a matter of life and death. Okay, very cool. So this says it's a high killy game. That's cool. In this unforgiving setting, you'll find yourself faced with the toughest choices and the most inopportune moments. Success will depend on your mastery of positioning, clever use of cover, and the ability to outmaneuver and fight your opponents. Okay. Honestly, it's already kind of sitting in the skirmish area for me. So I'm thinking like, Halo Flashpoint. I'm thinking Trench Crusade. That's where my mind's going. I'm thinking Kill Team. Blackout is set on the colony planet of Abol, a place of profound significance as humanity's first and last colony planet. Abol is a world teetering on the brink, struggling under the weight of oppressive state powers, splintered factions. It represents the last flicker of hope for countless colonists seeking a better future. Okay, cool. So the year 210, cool. Relentless multidimensional struggle. Okay. I've recently been playing Marathon with someone, so it makes me almost think of like the Marathon factions going back and forth at it. Okay, before you play, so we've got models. Okay, 32 millimeter or 1/48 scale miniatures called models. Okay, so 32 millimeters, kind of the new. Oh, I am so sorry. Here we go. So, am I on the page? I am. Okay, 32 millimeter. All right, which seems to be the new scale, and that's kind of what I said, Duethia. Now, recently, I was inspired by Turnip 28 to shift away from set base size and units, and just to see how people like love making their own models for Turnip 28. And someone talked recently about scale. I wish I could cite the YouTube channel, but I watch so many of these and I'm just learning all the time. But he said, scale is so flexible. I was thinking about that. My cousin is 6'7". My cousin was 6'7", 340 pounds growing up. And then I had a friend who was like 5'4", so, and they're both medium scale on D&D. So, very interesting. So, but 32 millimeter, that's kind of the new way to do it. Infantry are any human-sized miniatures mounted on a 25 millimeter. Now, I've noticed 25 millimeter is kind of an old-school scale, or 1-inch base. Yeah, 25 millimeter is basically 1 inch. Vehicles are larger models that may not require a base, kind of like a tank. Okay. Base to base, okay, is when one model is touching another model base to base. Very cool. Terrain depicted by 2D or 3D scenery pieces before 2D scenery. Okay, it's an interesting one. Players should agree on the nature and effects of the terrain. Okay, I've been hearing recently someone like Morden Glory complaining about, the future of flat Warhammer tables. Tokens, all right. They must follow or be placed alongside the model. Okay, I'm not a huge fan of token-heavy gameplay. Games like Marvel Crisis Protocol or Star Wars Legion, so these atomic mass games, my kids actually complain when I play with them. So I've got 4 boys, no daughters. I wish I had a daughter, but 4 boys is what I got. And they can complain sometimes when we play war games about all the tokens can be really daunting for them. Personally, I think it makes it clear to know what's going on the battlefield, but I also think it kind of adds a lot of asset management to the game, so it can weigh it down a little bit. And a D10 system, okay, numbers 1 to 10. Okay, so, I mean, that for gameplay could make it easier to understand percentages, right? And then distances, I'm assuming is miniature, or is inches. Blackout distance in inches, yeah. At any time for model on a base-to-base, okay, yeah, so you can pre-measure. Okay, cool. All right, and then a quick caveat about line of sight over here. So, here we go. Blackout team offers token packs for gameplay. Our provided token pack contains green and red chevrons. Typically, we use green chevrons for ready and the red for engaged. For colorblind players, the chevron pointed towards the model. Oh, very nice. Both my brothers, my older brothers, are colorblind, and I am not. So I don't know how I got so lucky there. But I constantly have been playing games with them and, realize that they can't always see what's going on in certain games because of color blindness. Okay. So tokens is also interesting, more asset management, and they provide them. So that's something with Dwethia that I've been trying to do, is I wanted to provide a completely agnostic system for Dwethia, to where you could use whatever you want and really make game systems your own. And so that was important to me, that everyone could just play today. And then for markers, I do have a few places where I suggest using markers, but they're always optional in my game. They're never required. But okay, so already reading that, but seems still accessible. So let's see how to actually play this game. Okay, this is big. This is something I heard him talk about in the game or on the channel, where he was talking about why he loves Blackout. He was talking about the unit cards, and he said it's a very card heavy game. And that's a piece that's interesting, because again, you can buy the cards from Blackout. I get it, the free rules, but you got to buy the token. It seems like they offer the ability to buy tokens and their cards, but I wonder if you can print them out. It seems like you might be able to print them out. Let's read. Okay. Unit cards contain all the following information about a unit and the models that are in it. The name, the unit special rules, specialists, okay. Combat loads, okay. Represent how many special abilities, weapons from the army, okay. Represents each model's level of training, okay. D10 rolled on a skill, okay. Every model unit uses this number, a movement value, okay, yeah. Armor, okay. And so let's take a look at the unit card itself that they're providing here. Let's see how, that's a big thing for me. So when I get into a new war game and I open up the kit when I'm buying it, like when I got into Monster Apocalypse or something like that, or Star Wars Legion, and I look at the unit card, immediately I want to know, can I read this thing, right? Is it obvious to me? And it's interesting because we've gotten a lot more artistic. I was just admiring the old school 4th edition loadouts, because this used to be a Warhammer loadout here. You know, I don't know if that's clear or not, but you know, it was just this little block of text, and that's it, right? And so I don't know what I'm showing. Librarian, right? Weapon skill, ballistic skill, strength, toughness, wounds. And then it looks like, yeah, attacks, leadership, save. So, and I think back then they had I was initiative. So very quick. And then all the war gear was pretty standard, and it was in the back of the codex instead of being listed in the unit's profile itself. So they're like, it's a bolter, look up bolter. As a kid, that got a little tough when I was really young, playing in the 90s, because they'd be like, oh, okay, what was that again? So let's look at this. Yeah, 6. Okay, so that is the 5 is the skill. Okay, so 60% skill check. Okay, so all right. And then do you want to get under it or do you want to get it? I don't know, but they'll probably tell us. Okay. And then what is that? 6 here. That's the movement. So he moves 4 inches, it looks like. Okay. Yep. 4 inches. And then I've made it bigger for you guys. It's not as big for me because I've zoomed in my screen here. But what is that? 7 is armor. Okay. Block incoming damage. It looks like 1 out of 6 is what it says. 4 is combat loads. Okay. How many special abilities or weapons? All right. So it's pretty stat heavy. And that is something that where I stole from, for Dwethia, I stole from Lord of the Rings strategy battle game. The first edition of it. This is a beautiful little game. I grew up playing with my brother. This is one of the original rule books from that time. So this thing is actually held together with Scotch tape where the pages have ripped open. But when you look at a model's profile here, it's very similar to that old school Warhammer where, you know, there's not a lot going on there. And all of these are heroes. That's Pippin right there. But there's not a lot. Even when you look at someone like Sauron in this game, who is like, you know, the biggest of the big bads in Lord of the Rings. Even when you look at Sauron, he's got a wall of text for him. That's Sauron. He's got a lot going on there. But it's only 1, 2, 3, 4, about 4 to 5 paragraphs, which isn't a lot. It's not a lot of rules flavor when you're talking about Sauron, the Lord of the Ring. But let's go on. Okay, so skill check. What is a skill check? Models will often require... Oh, let me make sure I got it for you guys. Yeah, here we go. Okay. Models will often be required to make skill checks. To do so, roll 2d10. Okay, 2d10. And compare the result to the model's skill. Each d10 that rolls equal to or higher than the model's skill is a success. So that 6 for this guy is actually... equal to or higher. Okay. So that's about a 40% success chance on 2 dice, though. So that makes it, I think, about 20% chance. Well, 40% chance per dice for success. Any D10 roll that rolls less than the model's skill is a failure. No success is rolled. Skill check is failed. Okay. Skill checks may never roll less than 1d10. When a skill check is hard, it may never roll more than... when a skill check is hard, okay, may never roll more than 1d10. Okay, so I mean, it's a simple system. You roll a d10, you meet the value on the card. Simple, lightweight. I like that. I like that a lot. Oh, I'm scrolling up here instead of here. Shame on me. Okay. Now, I will say one thing is that the PDF, I've got like 24 gigs of RAM on this computer. I've got an i7 and I've got a gaming graphics card to where I play Marathon and stuff. And my system's kind of struggling to load all of this, which is weird. Maybe I need to download the PDF. That would help. But either way, movement. Okay, so we already learned skill checks. Simple enough, right? We need to know that. Now we know it. Unit card, skill check, done. Okay, movement. To move a model... Measure the intended distance from its base. Okay, yep, super enough. Terrain that is 1 inch tall or short is called an obstacle. An infantry model may move over an obstacle by reducing their movement by 2. Okay, this is something I recently went through in my system for Dwethia that I just designed, which was, I had to get over movement rules. So when it came to how to move, I came up with, today I just wrote these rules, which is moving up an incline and moving across a gap. Those were pieces that I was like, oh yeah, like that's a whole thing. And it's funny enough because there's rules in Lord of the Rings for moving up terrain and across a gap, and you take a skill check. I don't like it to be so tough. So my system, I wanted it quick, lightweight, and simple, which means difficult terrain in my system just halves your movement. So if you usually move 6, difficult terrain, you move 3. And what I said here is anything that's inch high, you can ignore. If it's higher than an inch, rounded down. So, 1.5 inches, you can ignore it, but 2 inches, you gotta deal with it. I said it's just difficult terrain. So, when you move over something tall or however high it needs to go, reduce it. So the example I gave is that there's an assassin. He's 8 inches tall. He wants to climb he has an 8 inch of movement. He wants to climb a building. One is 4 inches high. One is 5 inches high. Since it's difficult terrain, he halves his movement. He can only go up 4 inches, which means he can climb the 4 inch tall building. He cannot climb the 5 inch tall building. Bada bing, bada boom, you're done. Moving across a gap, again, you can ignore a 2 inch gap, rounded down to the inch. But the moment you're dealing with 2 inches or more, right? So 2 inches down. So the moment you're dealing with over 2 inches, then so this is a good example of why I should rewrite it, because I think I want it to be 2 inches, not rounded down. Because at 2.5 inches, you could still ignore it because you round down to the inch to 2 inches. So either way, so that means 3 inches. But yeah, if you want to jump a gap, just treat the gap as difficult terrain. So, I said an alpha, he's an assassin unit. He's a kind of zombie unit for another faction. He wants to run at someone. One gap is 4 inches. One gap is 2 inches. He can't jump a 4 inch gap because 6 inches divided by 2 is 3 inches. So he can't make that jump, but he can go the 2 inch route. So very simple. If you can make it or not. I wanted to minimize how much throwing of dice we're doing. Save that for the combat. I don't want a game that's too crunchy. I want it just the right amount of crunch. Okay. So leaning out. A model may use half its movement to lean out after a move. If a model only leans out, instead of moving it, it does not count as moving for special rules. Place a 25 millimeter lean out marker next to the model's base. The marker can be used for model's line of sight. Okay, so yeah, they were using markers or showing, and again, it almost makes me think of those FPS games where you can click like a bumper on your controller and you can lean. I remember when games first started doing that. I think it was like Xbox Original when the first time I saw something like that. I wonder if it was anything in 360 that did that. Models with jump X can jump as a movement. The model may be placed anywhere within X horizontally and X vertically without passing through terrain. Okay, I like the use of keywords, right? Jump X, so you can just know that rule. And I use that a lot in Dwethia. So when it comes to, for example, let's go to my shooting rules. Well, let's go to my shooting rules. So I've got all these identifiers for shooting: quick shot, arc, blast, and light. Try to keep just as few as I need. But yeah, so, you have a keyword and you know what it means, right? You kind of learn it and you know what it means. Warhammer's got a few of these, scouts, precision, rend. I think once a system gets too many of these rules, it can get kind of heavy on that. And I always want there to be a quick glossary where, okay, you look it up and it's 1 or 2 sentences, you know what's up. And there can be a quick reference on the side. I like doing it. I'm a little weary of doing it even myself. Like, okay, is this too many keywords? I don't want to bloat this down to where you have to memorize a whole dictionary, right? So I think my goal is to keep things tight on a card where you could almost leave the card on the side of the table and reference it if you need to. But hopefully the words are simple enough and there's few enough that people can just memorize them. But okay, jump X can jump as movement. Very cool. Okay, so combat. Let's see how you do combat. That's what I'm really interested in. I love combat systems. I love reading how people handle these kind of things. So let's see what's going on here. I imagine there's a lot of shooting in this game. And the shooting phase is something in my own system that I didn't steal from anyone. I completely revitalized and made my own system for shooting. And I'm curious if it's too strong. I need to play test it quite a bit more to test it out. But shooting steps: pick a model that your shooting model has line of sight to and is within its weapons range. Okay. Confirm if the target model is in cover. Okay. Roll a skill check, 2d10, rolling an additional d10 if the target is not in cover, and subtracting a d10 if the target is in cover. That's interesting. If they're not in cover, you roll 3d10. If they're in cover, you roll 1d10. So you never actually roll 2d10. That's an interesting piece. That's an interesting piece to that one. Like, why is that? I'm curious what the design idea was behind that. D10 in a shooting skill check are called shots. Okay. For each success, the target suffers damage equal to the weapon's damage. Yes. Shots that ace by rolling a 10 apply double the weapon's damage. Okay. It's interesting that they say yes when they haven't even introduced that, but okay. The target must make an armor check rolling a number of d10 equal to the first number in their armor and preventing a point of damage for each d10. Okay, so it's a save roll. So one person makes a shot. Let's say you're not in cover. That person rolls 3d10 to shoot you. I'm the defender. Now I roll a number of d10 equal to the first number in their armor. Okay, so that's what that 1-6 meant. So 1d10 I roll and I need to get a 6. So an armor of 2d6 means I roll 2d10 and I'm looking for 6s, 6-up saves. Okay. Cool. When a model fails to prevent damage, it must mark a number of damage on its card equal to the damage it suffered. Now, I'm curious when they say mark damage on its card. One thing when I first started playing War Machine, they had these cards where you would write on the card your damage characteristics, and I did not like that. It meant right away I needed some card sleeves and some dry erase markers, and then, if you're holding up the card and like, what does this unit do? Oh no, I erased my wounds, So it was very frustrating. But I'm curious if that's what they're meaning. Let's look at the Cardigan. Cardigan? That's a Taylor Swift song. All right, let's see. They don't seem to have any place where you mark wounds on them. So maybe they mean like you're just keeping track on your card. Sometimes with wounds and Warhammer data cards, when I play with my kids, the Warhammer data cards, I will put red glass beads on the card to represent wounds that it's been taking. Okay. Is there... After making an action, an infantry model in base-to-base with an enemy infantry model will engage in close quarters combat. Okay, CQC, close quarters combat. Okay. Both models will make a skill check. Each success inflicts 1 damage to the other. Very interesting. Okay, so let me talk about Dwethia. I know we're talking about Blackout, but just to compare the systems is what I'm doing. Because again, I'm reading all this because I want to learn. In Dwethia, in the shooting phase, I really wanted to minimize how much you were kind of crunching your rolls on everything, and so what I did was. You see if you can see. All right. Can you see? Is it line of sight? Good. If there's things in the way, you have a perception stat. So factions will have for example, models will have a perception stat. And originally I had this like 2-up, 3-up kind of like Warhammer's ballistic skill. I went away from that system because it didn't have enough modularity. I realized I only had 5 values to play with. 2-up through 6-up was all I could play with. So I shifted it to perception stat, where you could have a perception of 10, and that means you're a really good shot. So you take your perception, which is 3, and then if there's things in the way, you subtract from your perception, right? So if my hunter wanted to shoot at a zombie, and there's something in the way, instead of perception of 3, I roll a perception of 2. If the zombie has cover, let's say he's in cover 2, like he's in the light forest, then I subtract 2 more, because cover 2 means whatever that number is, cover whatever the number is, subtract that as well. So something's in the way, and then he's in a forest, I subtract 3, my perception is 0. But the strength, so you add your perception to the strength of your weapon. If I've got a bow, my strength is 2. So that's 0 plus 2 becomes a 2. And then I compare it to the defense of who I'm trying to shoot, right? So a zombie has pretty terrible defense. Let me just see what the zombies' defenses are real quick. So a zombie has a walker, is what they're called. Walkers have a defense of 3, yeah. And you can give them armor or heavy armor. So, but let's say he doesn't have any armor. He's just defense of 3. So, yeah, my 2 versus his 3. And then I totally stole the Warhammer math equation, right? If it's equal, it's a 4 up. If it's greater, then if his defense is greater, it's a 5 up. If my strength is greater, it's a 3 up, right? If it's double in either direction, then it's a 2 up or a 6 up. So, okay, 2 is lower than 5, or lower than 3. So I need a 5 up to hurt the walker. So I roll a 5 up. If I get it, right, 1 dice, I roll it, I get a 5. Cool, I got it. It dies. He doesn't have a save. Some units have save, but I wanted my system to be more killy, so saves are rare. 4+ saves are really good. 3+ saves are legendary, and 2+ saves don't exist. But I think 1 legendary unit has a way to get 2 up, but it's a whole thing. So that walker just dies. Did I hit him? Yeah, my arrow got through his armor. His armor was already considered in the roll. So 1 roll and he dies. Now, when I got to the fight phase, and so, for example, every other game out there, it's like they roll dice to hit, you roll dice to wound. Now, what I like is they've got 1 roll. Warhammer, you roll a hit, you roll a wound, and then they roll a save. These guys got rid of 1 where it looks like you just rolled a hit and then they rolled a save. And I like that. I might not have enough rolls, but save rolls do pop up. They're just rare in my system. But I like their close combat quarters. Now, I came up with this in my system. This is the first time I'm reading this rule. It looks like they came to the same conclusion. So I thought in my system, when it comes to skirmish and we get to the fight phase, basically my models have martial stats, which is how good they are at fighting. And you compare the martial stat of each unit. So, if my marshal's higher than your marshal, but not double, then I need a 3 and you need a 5. And then you roll all your attacks, right? Looking for 5 ups. I roll on my attack looking for 3 ups, right? And then we see what we got. We both roll at the same time, so one player's not getting bored. And then it's, again, strength versus defense. And so you're rolling to hit. Did I win the fight here, lose the fight here? Okay, some won, some lost. And then we roll defense. And again, it's the same thing, strength versus defense. You roll against my defense, I roll against your defense. We roll dice and we see who dies. So very killy. I wanted a very killy system. So what's interesting is they kind of did the same thing. The model with more successes applies their damage first. Okay, if this would destroy the other model, the winning model does not suffer any damage. Okay, that's interesting. So in my system, you can kill each other, right? Which I think happens in warfare all the time. They both stab each other, and well, they both died. But their system, whoever has the most successes wins, and the other person doesn't look like they don't get anything. The player with the highest roll on the D10 wins. If players roll the same number, they will roll again. See, I want to avoid that. In my own system, because I feel like it can slow the game down a little bit. I would almost prefer there to be, I don't know, I think that's why both models killing each other it's in case of a tie, everyone dies, or nobody dies would be interesting. But I think I'm a fan of games that are a little bit more lethal. When a model is destroyed in close quarters combat, the QCQ ends and the player proceeds to the next QCQ because you were resolving them across the board. Okay. And that's an interesting piece too, because and this is a piece that I have on my notes. I have a note doc where I review my rules, which is I ask, as a new player, what is the bird's eye view of what I want to know? And one thing I might have missed, because I was going pretty quick, was, because see, what I do in my system is I go over, here, let's just go to skirmish. I go over everything you need to know. So this is typical, like getting started, what do you need to play, dice, measuring tape, all that. They did that too. Building your collection. I just explained models and base sizes, basically encouraging people. I want to really get that turnip 28 love in my universe, where it's like, hey, have fun, make your space parts, make your space Romans, make your space zombies, right? Like make it your own. Really, really get involved in telling your own story through all of it. And then I cover the characteristics so you know what to read and what it means. But then I go over the game, right? Like here's how it works. Here's the bird's eye view. You're going to deploy your forces and you're going to play the game. Here's the turn structure, right? Priority, movement, shoot, close combat, and end phase, right? Just so you know from a bird's eye view, how is this game going to be played? And then I'll get into how each and every one of those phases works with a little bit more nuance and some rules and, you know, some of the crunch. But here, before you play, and then they told me the unit cards, very cool. And now they're just going straight into movement. But how does activating models work? Do I activate all my models at once? Do we alternate activations? Right? Is it I go, you go? Do I go with everything, then you go with everything? Because it says then resolve the next close quarters combat. That tells me that we're moving multiple models at once. That in the combat phase, there's multiple combats. But it's not telling me, and that's what I'm looking for. So again, just to use my own system for example, when it's the move phase, okay, the side with priority moves all or some of its models first, right? Players can choose for their models to remain stationary. I think that's obvious, but sometimes you got to put obvious stuff in there. Because in the spaceship combat, the version of this, for me, that's spaceship combat, you can't remain stationary because spaceships float in space. But either way, once the priority player has completed all desired movements, the other player moves all of their models. So that what I did in my system is I move everything, you move everything, right? Then I shoot everything, you shoot everything. And then we fight. And if I have priority, I pick out the fights. But we're both fighting each other. Here, I just don't know yet what we're doing. So I'm a little lost. And maybe I'm a bad reader. I'll take that. I could just be a bad reader. The game setup. So here we go. When starting a game, you and your opponent will first decide on the size of the game. The size of the game determines by the number of groups each player will control. Okay. If this is for a small game played on a 2 foot, 2 foot to 3 foot, 3 foot table. Okay. Medium size, 3 foot, large scale, 4 foot. Okay. But what is a medium or a large scale? Like what determines that? Oh, the groups, because there's no points in this game. 1 group, 2 groups, 3 groups. Okay. Pick a scenario. Okay, I love scenario plays. That's one thing in Duethia I was going back and adding. So I've got right now in my system where you have main scenario rules, and I've been following 11th edition a lot, but in my version there's core scenarios and each person gets to pick their own. So one person can pick Annihilation and he's like, I just want to wipe you off the board. And the other person can pick King of the Hill. And he's like, well, I don't care if you kill me. I want to hold the center. Right. But then I also have faction specific secondaries so that's the primary. And then for secondary, they're different based on your army and their play style. So Empire of Soul, typically they have a progressive round thing where there's 5 different secondaries for the 5 different rounds you play in, versus like the Black Sun Traders who theirs are kind of always active, and they just want to kill things, assassinate. They want to kill heroes, they want to kill units, and they want to dig for treasure. Right, that's the Black Sun Pirates. But here I like scenarios, Trench Crusade scenarios, Turnip 28 is scenarios. I don't like when scenarios, you're kind of bound to them because it can take, I like to just let me throw it on my models, you throw it on your models, let's pick some ways to win and let's play, right? Okay, so pick a scenario or choose a scenario. Players need to choose a scenario. There are several scenarios beginning on page 26, okay? We'll have to take a look at those. Arrange the terrain. Players will place their terrain on the table, creating a thematic and balanced battlefield. How do we know it's thematic and balanced? Right? Is that up to us? Who picks sides too? How do we know who's... Okay. The deployment edge is a straight line of table going from one corner to the next. If the scenario doesn't include deployment edges, players can roll a d10 each, re-rolling ties. The player who rolls the highest number picks their deployment edge first. Okay, so you get to pick. Yeah. So you set up terrain before you know where it is, so that encourages fairness. That's a whole nother piece, too, with terrain, is setting up a fair board, and that's a lot of the 11th edition Warhammer buzz has been all about that. And that's a piece for Dwethia that my game really relies on there being terrain. It's meant to be played with terrain, of course. That's why we have terrain. But the player with priority will place a piece of terrain on the battlefield. The opponent will then place a terrain piece. Players will alternate placing terrain pieces until there's none remaining. I like that because it encourages strategic placing of terrain. But I'm toying with the idea. I'm not there yet, but I'm toying with the idea of people actually create like bringing terrain with points based on the terrain, and that way making sure you're actually deploying terrain you kind of bought or paid for, to give you more strategic advantage. Okay, game rounds. This is what I want, and then I'll let you guys go. I know this is a longer video. I'm sorry. I like them short and sweet. In Blackout, a game is made of rounds, each with 2 parts. And this is section 5. I almost wish it was sooner. I almost wish you would have told me the game rounds before you told me about combat and shooting and all that and moving. I almost wish this was like section 2. Players will pick up all activation. Okay. Rounds, each with 2 parts, operations and executions. Player follows these steps in order, starting with the operations. Players will pick up all activation markers, ready tokens, and engage tokens from their models and units. Determine initiative. To determine who will go first in a round, both players will roll a d10, re-rolling if they roll the same number. The player that rolls the higher number will activate a unit in the execution first. Okay. Activations. Players will take turns activating units, starting with the player who won the initiative. Okay. So I go, you go. That answers that question. The execution ends once both players have activated all their units. After the execution ends, a new round will begin. Okay. Now, what threw me off a little bit about that is the combat section. It says, when a model is destroyed in close combat, players proceed to the next close combat. Why wouldn't we proceed to the next activation? How could there be multiple combats if we're activating one unit at a time? That's something I don't quite understand. That happens in my system because you move all your models, then you shoot all your models, and then you fight all your models. So you would, once you finish the fight steps, you go to the next, the player with priority picks out the next fight and the next fight until there's no more fights remaining. Here, if I move a dude into another dude, there's a close combat. We fight that close combat and it ends. One of us died, one of us lived. Why would there be another? I'm just a little lost there. Activating unit. And guys, I want to be clear. I'm not like picking on these guys. This is just me coming at this fresh, not having studied it. This is the first time I'm laying eyes on these rules, and I just want to see what we're doing here, right? But I'm not following a little bit here or there in some of their wording. It kind of confused me. Maybe this is good feedback for them, though. Activating a unit allows a player to move their models and destroy the enemy. Units with an activation marker cannot activate. Okay, makes sense because they've already activated. Units with no remaining models cannot activate. Okay. Now what happens if one player has more models? Let's see. Oh, you probably don't because you bring groups. Follow the steps. But then units can die, though. So your opponent could have more units than you. During the reposition step, every model in the unit may move. Cool. So that could cause repositioning could cause multiple fights. Once every model is moved, each model must make one action each. Resolve them one at a time. Okay, what are my actions? Shoot, ready, and sprint. Okay. Shoot at a target. Very cool. Ready. The model gets a ready token. Ready tokens allow the models to make a reaction. Okay. The sprint. The model may move. When making actions, enemy models may react. Reactions are covered under 7.0. Okay. We're almost there. 7.0. Making reactions. A model in a unit that has not activated. So it's interesting too is because we talked about moving way up there and we talked about shooting way up there. And then we talked about the round activation and now we're talking about reactions. So the rules are a little all over the place for me and it seems like they're written well. I don't have a problem with the way they're written. What's throwing me is the way they're laid out, which could help. And I'm in a glass house and I'm throwing stones. My rules are not ready. If you go to dwethia.com to check out what I've got going on over there, keep in mind I'm not even in beta yet, right? This is alpha, pre-alpha. I'm still, even when you go to, the Conquest, I'm still getting assets for, some of the stuff over there. So my game is rough. It's out there if you want to check it out, but it's not it's not ready yet. I'm still building it in theory crafting, which is why I have this channel to theory craft and build with the community. As we can kind of all hang out together and figure out wargaming together. Everyone's making indie wargames these days, which is why I love stuff like what Blackout's doing, or Turnip 28, or Trench Crusade, or Conflict 47, or Bolt Action, where all these companies coming out with new games. Love it. So okay, you can return fire, very cool. You can overwatch, very cool, and you can juke. When targeted by shooting, an infantry model may gain an engage token to gain cover from the shooting model. Very cool. Okay, so that's dodging out of the way. I like it. Okay, and then now we've got combat example here, when we already talked about combat way up above, and then some additional rules, vehicle rules, moving vehicles. Okay, all in all, let me give you guys my overall reaction to it. So I'm going to now, really quick, as we end the video, I'm going to recap. And again, you saw me read, so it's not like I've sat down and really read all of the rules. This is just like, how clearly communicated is the game? How quick can I pick up your concepts? And I would say that Blackout is a I go, you go alternate activation skirmish game with small models. If I am looking for a vibe, and I'm picking from a catalog of games of a similar vibe, I think what I would also see in the catalog with Blackout is probably Halo Flashpoint. It's probably Trench Crusade, right? Probably Kill Team. Probably Kill Team. So this is the kind of game we're in. And for me, for my rules, I would say, I was comparing it to my skirmish rules. For me, it's more of, I would say, that's going to be Dwethia Heroes, right? For me, Dwethia Heroes is kind of my version of a Trench Crusade style game. So we're dealing more with a handful of heroes, right? Heroic models, moving, fighting, shooting, killing. Cover is important. Action economy is important. Okay, so yeah. It looks like the game, I really like the idea that you can, I really like the idea of readying your unit. So instead of just moving or shooting, you're kind of encouraged to place that ready marker to give you more flexibility in what your guy does. Are you going to overwatch? Are you going to return fire? Or are you going to juke? So I do like that. In my system, I've got something similar. Heroes or other units have what is called destiny points. And then when it comes to destiny, and destiny is again, I'm a little brother and I'm a stealer, I'm a thief. I stole might from Lord of the Rings, and the might points in Lord of the Rings you could spend to do heroic actions. In my system, you can do special actions. You can surge, which allows you to move. Which allows you to move out of priority. So if you're coming close to my hero and he's guarding a bunch of archers and I don't want you to shoot them, then I can surge and I can say, hold up, before you move anymore, I'm gonna activate a destiny point. I'm gonna move these guys away, and then you can surge with the destiny point. Go, well, before you move them, I'm gonna move them, and then we roll off to see whose action happens first. And we can also wager destiny. Heroic Resolve, you can turn your destiny into a 4-up. Feel no pain. But destiny points are precious. There's not a lot of them to go around. So it just represents your hero kind of shrugging off damage if he can, if he's got the destiny for it. So, do you save it for surging or do you save it for heroic resolve, right? And then together as one, in my game, coherency is kind of interesting. It's important to be grouped up, and sometimes it's terrible to be grouped up. So together as one allows you to kind of take a group of units that aren't together and then smash them together, and that creates a shield wall. So if a bunch of archers are firing at you, your hero nearby can shout together at one. All models within 3 inches pull up together, and then tower shields can go up to protect you from archers. But yeah, so I like the flexibility. I'm definitely going to spend some more time reading these rules a little bit more in depth. And again, being a little brother, seeing what I can steal. And then I'm going to see if I can find some battle reports. In fact, let's see. By the way, Blackout, subscribe to you, sir. You're talking about things that I love. So you get all of my love. But yeah, let's see.
As I have. And one...
Oops, my bad. Let's see if we have Blackout battle report. Blackout. Here we go. Okay, miniature game montage. All right, maybe we'll check out some of these miniature game montage battle reports and see how this game is played. But that's it for now. We're still under an hour, so that makes me feel somewhat accomplished. But I hope you guys have enjoyed. Just getting a taste of a new game with me, right? If you're out there and you love Blackout, or you're working on Blackout and you find this video, maybe just me being a layman's kind of person coming along and, getting my first impression could be valuable. I mean, that's something as a game designer I would love. I would love to see someone just kind of go, okay, like, let's taste Dwethia and see what this rule system has to offer, when my rule system is a little bit more, fleshed out. There's a lot of there I'm tweaking. There's still typos and errors and everything, but we're working on it. And then I'm still playtesting. But if you want to check out Dwethia, you can go to dwethia.com. And Dwethia is spelled Dwethia. My brother came up with the name, and this is in honor of him. But dwethia.com. And if you want to check out Blackout, blackoutgame.com. It's blackoutgame.com. Right. So BLKOUT.com. I'll link them down in the description as well, so you guys can find this game. Free rules. It asked for my email, but it was just name, email, and you're in. It didn't actually send me an email that I had to go click on. They probably sent me something, but it was super easy. I want to go read the lore. I want to learn more about this universe. I want to invite you guys to learn more about their universe too. Give their game a try. The rules are free. You probably have, if you're like me, you probably got some models sitting around that could count as stuff. I'm also curious. I'm trying to close out the video, but I am also curious. Can you find unit cards? Here we go. Can you give me some unit cards so I can play test? Yeah. They got some unit cards. Okay, cool. So yeah, so you can play test this game. Maybe I'll play test it with my kids. All right, but then I'll let you guys go. Have a good one. I'll see you next time. I hope you guys also will make your own war games. Be creative. Just get involved and love this hobby that I love. That in this day and age, it is far expanding beyond just Warhammer and War Machine. We live in a day and age where we can find all these really cool, really fun, free war games. And if you're like me, you still love Warhammer. It's not going anywhere. It stays on your shelf. It comes off your shelf. You play games all the time. But maybe you're exploring with some Turnip 28. Maybe you're exploring with some Conflict 47. Maybe you're exploring with some Trench Crusade. I just love to see the creativity. I love that stuff like this exists out there. And sometimes reading and learning these rule systems is 70% of the fun for me. Just kind of chewing on the game mechanics. I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.